Right, well, it's brilliant what's happened, thank you. It's brilliant what's happened so far, because I was sitting there thinking, I don't have a title. I kind of know vaguely I know exactly what I'm going to talk about, but I couldn't think, what? Kids. No, they're not going out. He's looking at me going, kids. The little ones, they're already gone. Tinies. Creche, is it under 2? If you're a visitor, it's under 2. Not the visitor who's under 2, you can go in creche. Yes, visitors who are under 2 can go in creche. Is that what you're trying to tell me? You're confusing me. I wasn't sure what my sort of overriding thought was. And then listening to what Beth said tonight and the song we've just sung, my title, Heather, will be A Full and Overflowing Life. Because what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is about how you get that big, yay, smile, like Howard the dog, on your face. Because I think I have some keys to unlocking that, which is very exciting. Now, I just have one verse that's going to go up behind me from Jeremiah 13. And it says, and there it is, my people have committed 2 sins. They have turned away from me. That's my second interruption. It's like being at work. Anyone chewing? Put it in the bin if you're chewing, please. I'm not joking. Sometimes I see teenagers chewing in the street and I have to stop myself asking them to get rid of their gum. My people have committed 2 sins. They have turned away from me, the spring of fresh water, and they have done... Bless her. Shall I start that again? My people have committed 2 sins. They have turned away from me, the spring of fresh water, and they have dug cisterns, cracked cisterns that hold no water at all. I want to think a little bit tonight about what container we're using to hold our life. Because it seems to me that God has a very definite desire that actually He wants to be our container, our spring of fresh water. But what we sometimes tend to do is like what these people did. We try and build our own containers to hold our life in. And we've been hearing a lot, haven't we, recently, about how we can become shackled to the past. And those values that we hold now are because of experiences we've had then that we take with us. And they become the experiences within which we hold our life. And how we've been hearing, haven't we, that there's a way to move beyond that, to break those shackles, to truly live in the freedom that we were designed to live in with that big smile on our face, because we have a full and overflowing life. Now, we all want a full container. No one's sitting in here tonight. That clip of that little girl was just absolutely... shouldn't do that. Shouldn't touch my face. It wrecked me because I just thought that little girl's face was she was in that moment just so full of everything that was happening to her and so overwhelmed. And we all want that, don't we? We all want experiences in life where you think that thing you've always wanted, that life you've always dreamt of having is yours. Now, we want 3 things, don't we? We want to be loved, accepted, we want to be needed in life. And we want to be loved because we want that sense of I'm secure. I'm loved by people. I'm secure in life. We want to be accepted because we somehow want to be worth something. Yes, it's great when someone loves you, but you don't want to be loved in spite of. You want to be loved because of. And we want to be needed. Everybody in here, we all want to feel significant and important. We want that, all of us, because we know that if we get that brings a fuller experience. So what do? We hold on to and grab anything that does that for us. If we are going to get love from it, acceptance from it, worth for it, we're going to hold on to it for all that we are worth. Now, what happens is our emptiness that we feel in life, because when we don't always feel like that little girl, is because somehow that container and those things we're trying to fill with leaks somehow. It might be that somehow, I was getting love from over there, and now it's gone. I was getting accepted from this thing and this person, and now I'm not anymore. Or I was doing this, had this role in life that made me feel like I'm worthwhile, and now all of a sudden, I've put here, it just bites me in the bum. And I wanted to take it out, but I couldn't, so I know that's for somebody, and perhaps you're someone that just thinks, whatever I do, it just bites me in the bum all the time. It's like, it doesn't give back to you what you were hoping to get out of it. Now, if we want those certain things, we search for and look for ways to get them. and hold on to them then, sometimes with disastrous consequences. Right, where's my helper? Josh. Here's the time for my demonstration. I feel like I'm on Blue Peter. Is that still on, Blue Peter? Really? Why was he called Blue Peter? Oh. I thought he was a Smurf or something. Right, okay. Are you ready? Are you ready? This is a full container. Can you see? It is the jug that I bought from my house. I'm sorry they're not very classy props. It was very last minute. This is Josh. He's my assistant, okay? This is a full container. Now notice, this container in itself is finite. It can run out. Yes, it's not going to last forever, this water. Now Josh is going to have a little challenge. I am going to fill this bottle with this water. But his job is to keep the bottle full because it has holes in it. Yes? So he has my little ironing tool. I'm all class me, right? And what he's got to do is you can take any water that drips in there and you've got to try and keep it full. Are you ready? And you can stop when either you get fed up or I do. Whichever happens first. Are you ready? Oh, my hand's shaking. Hang on. I'm going to wait till it's full. I'm filling it. Right, Josh, you can start whenever, but as soon as I've filled it to the top, I'm stopping. There you go. Go for it. Keep it full. Go on, Josh. Don't mess your outfit up, Josh. You're looking sharp. Josh is going to keep it full. It's still leaking. It's still leaking. Bless him. I've got my hands all wet. It's for a tissue. Oh, he's doing a good job, look. I was going to do this as a competition, but I only had one broken bottle. Now, can you see what my point might be? Don't you think this feels sometimes like life? That we're trying to constantly keep your life full, and isn't it hard work? Look, he hasn't got time to enjoy it. He's not smiling like Howard, is he? Because he's that busy trying to keep himself full. Oh, don't undo my... You can't get the help, can you? Don't undo my point, Josh. Let's see, do you think he'd be smiling if we had got him doing this for a week? Yes? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to see if you can get it half full. He's doing a good job. It's not enough, though, is it? Right, give him a 10-second countdown. That's fast, 10 seconds. Yay! Thank you very much. Thank you. There you go. Have a tissue. Okay. Now, do you get my point? In life, that is sometimes what it's like, isn't it? The container that we're trying to fit our life into just leaks. That stuff that we try and pour in to keep us full doesn't seem to do the job. And the effort that it takes to try and give ourselves this experience that, yay, is just exhausting. Now, what happens eventually is you get your people who are like the Energizer bunnies. We just keep filling and filling and filling. It takes us a long time to run out. But eventually, you get to the point where you give up. And then you kind of are going to sit on the floor in a heap and think, why bother? And then what happens, once we actually realise that those things that were serving us don't serve us anymore, you actually get to the point where you have people genuinely, desperately unhappy, depressed, just thinking, what is the point? And it's all because we're trying to fill up a container with something that isn't going to work. Now let me show you, ready with the clip? Let me show you this alternative. I haven't put the music on because it would, be a nightmare. Have you got it? This is our lovely alternative. Make your own sound effects. Oh, ignore this bit. This is the intro. It's coming. Look at that. That's pretty, isn't it? Do you like waterfalls, Pete? I'm getting thumbs up. Do you know on YouTube there's an 8-hour-long waterfall clip? Why would you sit and watch waterfall? Is what? That's what you do on your weekend, Pete. Now, this is the thing. In that verse we read at the start, it says that actually we can have a source that is a spring of fresh water, and that is just going to keep pouring. Pouring. And I would like that source to be the thing that's pouring into my life rather than that jug. So let's look. You might want to stop that because it'll be distracting and way more interested than me. Thank you. Let's look at some things that might get us to that experience, okay? Now, our flawed water container is not as good as his spring of fresh water. Now, in Galatians, it talks about how what happens sometimes when we come to God is we start out, yeah, God, it's all going to be about you. Great, you're going to do it. And then we take over. So we start off believing God for all this stuff. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, it's our job to fix it now. And our lives leak. And then what happens is we end up with this loss. And sometimes even coming to God, we don't realize that, yes, we came to God originally to help us. And then we've taken over somewhere in the middle. And it all just feels empty again. And what we then try to do when we've tried so hard and yet things haven't gone to plan, and we're filled with those, oh, if onlys, is we try and, for some weird reason, keep up the illusion that we can fix it. And keep up this sense that, you know what, we can fix this. We can keep pouring in and try other stuff and try and fix it over here. And if we just work hard enough, it can all be sorted. And we kid ourselves and other people that we are handling everything just fine. So people will say, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. And we're not fine, but for some reason we like to keep up that sense in which I can handle this and I can do this, and it's exhausting. Now, why do we do that? I have no water. I have no water. I have no container. Thank you. Why do we do that? Because we want the illusion keeps us quite secure and safe. And that illusion is more secure than facing the truth for many reasons. Now, in my work, I'm a teacher and I have a team of 13 people. And this week was data deadline. Spring term data deadline. So across all the 4 subjects that I manage, everybody had to put in their data for the pupils for this term. So they had to look at everything that had been done this term, decide what level the pupils were on, and then they put the level into our computer system, and those levels get sent home to parents once a term so the parents can see how well they are doing. And the expectation is that every year your pupils will move forward what's called 2 sub-levels. They're going to make half a level's progress every single year. Now, because there's this expectation and this target that, yes, everybody is going to move forward half a level a year, what I've found this year, because this is my new role this year to oversee these subjects, is that some of the data is wrong. It's inaccurate. Because what happens is, because everybody's under so much pressure to make it seem like it's all moved forward, because otherwise their performance management and their appraisal is linked to it, what happens is they clutch at anything that will make them think, oh, yay, my kids are making progress. So a child will do one great piece of work, one lesson, and they'll be like, oh, yes, the child's gone up. Now, they're not trying to be dishonest, but what they're trying to do is somehow meet the requirement in their mind. But it ends up fake data. Do you remember when Ant talked about being sincere and how it was about, sometimes we can put this glossy pot over it. So I've spent a lot of time this week with a number of different members of staff training them that if we just present fake data, for whatever our genuine reason and anxiety might be, it just sets up all sorts of problems. Because it sends the wrong message to the student, saying, well, you're there when they're not really there, to the parents, to me as a line manager, because I then can't actually fix any problems because I can't see them because it's masked by this fakeness. And they inflate it or deflate it rather than actually using it as an opportunity to really diagnose where the pupils are at. And so then when my staff were saying to me, yeah, but if they don't move forward, then I'm going to be in trouble. I was saying, no, I'd rather you came to me and said, this pupil isn't moving forward in my lesson, and then let's have a conversation about why, so that we can get them really moving forward, not just the appearance of them moving forward. And so the motivation sometimes is driven by this fear that we've got to make it look a certain way to be seen to be doing a good job. And then what happens is, it's inflated by this teacher, and then the next teacher gets them, and then they've got to do the same thing, or they're not seen to be moving forward. And what's happened with some pupils is they've been 3 years at the school. I inherit them in my class. I'm looking at the numbers thinking, well, you're not that how on earth has someone assessed you as being that when that's not where you are? Now, somebody at some point has to stop the bus and say, this isn't real. This isn't genuine. Now, fake data does not serve the purpose at all. And you know what? God does not need your made-up numbers to make your life look good. Because, Jesus had time for everyone. But the people that really got his back up were the people who could not see past their own glossy image and their condemnation of others who they perceived must be far away from what God wanted. And they were actually told, you know what? Those other people are getting into the kingdom ahead of you. Because actually, they weren't prepared to actually see what was really there, acknowledge that they might be falling short and need to change. Some of my staff need to change what they do in the classroom because it's not working. And they need to see it, realise it, then we can work together to change it, not just stick numbers in and hope I won't notice. Because do you know what? I know who's not actually assessing the pupils accurately because I know. And do you know what? Jesus looks at your life and he knows. He knows what's real and what's not. And you're not kidding him. Now, wonderfully at this meeting, this one teacher, everyone sits around being all really polite and lovely and supportive because I have this fantastic team. And then we were chatting about it, chatting it through. And then all of a sudden one woman said, she said, can I just say something? I said, yeah, go ahead. She said, I'm not meaning to be awful. She said, but I just don't get it. And she just opened up and said, I really want to do what you're asking me to do, but I don't understand. And do you know what happened as soon as she said that? Guess what some of the other people did? They were like, I'm so glad you've said that because I don't get it either. And these people have worked there for years, but somebody saying it all of a sudden took the lid off and we could have a much more productive conversation. Now, I hope you're seeing what I'm saying. I'm going to pull it together in a minute. And don't miss my point, though, because attitude matters. This woman who said to me, I don't get it, I know I'm getting it wrong, please help. She wasn't being negative and against. She was still for the purpose. So I'm not saying we should go around saying, well, I'm just saying it as I see it. Or this sense of, oh, I don't get what's going on. It must just be wrong. The attitude was right. We get that something's not working here. Let's work together to see how we can fix it and move forward. Now, fake Christianity is very appealing because it can make us feel very accepted in a group and very worthwhile, can't it? If we think we're with people now, everybody believes this and we all believe this, it can be like, well, I don't want to show that I'm confused by some of this stuff, or I don't want to ask my questions because I'm really not understanding why things are being handled like this and it makes no sense to me. So we fix the smile. We appear to be all with it, but really inside, we just don't get it. But rather than coming and sitting down saying, look, I love you, I'm for you, but I don't understand, will you help me see it? We don't do that for some kind of, I don't really know why. Maybe we're afraid. Maybe it's because we want to appear a certain way, like we are all sorted. Now, I've been at this Christianity thing a long time, and I can talk the talk and have done all the activities with the rest of you. I've done my all-night prayer meetings. I've been on my mission trips as a teenager, talking about Jesus on the streets of Berlin in German. That was a fun trip. Dancing to cheesy Christian songs, thinking, thank goodness I'm abroad, no one can see me. Awful. I remember at the time thinking, I wouldn't do this where I live, but it's all right. The German, I'm never going to see him again. Now, I've done all that, but you know what? Sometimes I feel like I know nothing. Sometimes God makes me so angry that I shout at him and I'll tell him to leave me alone. Sometimes, I get so panicky with all that I feel responsible for in life that I don't know how to function, and some days I feel totally alone. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay. And because I'm finally accepting the fact that actually invading all my weakness, you wrap me up in grace, the worst of me succeeded by the best in you. My success isn't because I don't have any weaknesses. My success is because his success wraps around my weaknesses and turns them into successes. It's absolutely beautiful. And do you know what? I'm now grateful for every imperfection that I see. By nature, I have been a perfectionist. I'm gaining on it But now when I see my imperfections, I think, do you know what? It's a great reminder to me not to trust in me. And when I was under the illusion that I could handle everything, perfect everything, fill up my container, I gave myself way too much credit and became like a lunatic. And if I hide that stuff, kid myself about that stuff, I turn away from Christ's waterfall, build myself this inadequate container to create this illusion to myself, as well as you people, that I've got all this under control. And I haven't. But I don't care anymore. It's brilliant. Now, I thought that, if I'm all completely honest, I thought that I was someone that I've turned out not to be. And that's been very disappointing, but it's okay because I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished yet. And like we heard last week, God keeps throwing me up in the air to sift that grain from the chaff, because he knows I'll turn out all right. I'm still standing, I'm doing okay. Now, one of the reasons why we stay attached to the experiences that we've had, including the God ones, and I think sometimes we want this cumulative God, where we think, do you know what, we can almost build up a point system with God. But you know, I've been married for, how many years have we been married? We've been together, don't say too long, or it might not be any longer. I've been with my husband 15 years this year. We've been married 13. And do you know what? It's wonderful, but if we don't work at it now, it doesn't matter that we've been married for 13 years. I have to do it now. And I think sometimes we can think, yes, well, if I've been with God 50 years, that must make me have this amount of God. But do you know, God's now. He's always now. It's not like we can build up over time. Yes, we can get to know him, but if it's not a now experience, it actually is going to stop filling us, because we've got to have it fresh and in the moment. Don't know why I said that. That wasn't in my notes. Hey-ho, maybe that was for somebody. Now, one of the reasons why we stay attached to the experience that we have had, including God ones, is to feel safe in what we are certain of. I know if I do this, this happens. I know that if I do such and such happens. And situations have led us to these conclusions. So these conclusions become our way to ensure that we are safe. Knowledge we find safe. If we know what we're doing, we're safe. We can control it. It makes sense. I'm sorted. Now, I came to God as a child. You know, I'm sure as you've been listening to Ant talk about examples of childhood experiences and how that can shape us, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this. And I came to God as a child because I wanted him to keep me safe and secure, because I didn't feel very safe and secure. I was always anxious, and there were some reasons for that. But I had a high level of anxiety, and God was going to keep me safe. So he was going to be where I would hide when I was scared. And I can think of many examples of when I did that. So God was like, everything around me can feel unsafe, but he's going to keep me safe. And then do you know what? Life happened. And I wasn't protected from people I loved most in the world accusing me of something I hadn't done and rejecting me. I wasn't protected from having a baby die in the early stages of pregnancy. I wasn't protected from very intense and ongoing financial pressures that left me flying by the, what's the expression? Oh, yeah, sorry, that expression. I wasn't protected from being mistreated, from having to work hard at my marriage, from family members dying. So all of a sudden I came to this conclusion, well, I'm not safe then. So my conclusion became, God's not keeping me safe. So then my next conclusion was, for whatever reason, God cannot or will not keep me safe, because my safety has to look like that, or it's not safety. I mean, God never said he'd protect me from everything, but in my head, God protecting me was keeping me safe from such things. So then my next stage was to say, right, I will keep me safe. If you're not going to do it, God, I shall keep me safe, and I shall protect myself. And we all do similar things to that, and I don't know what your thing is, but what we then do is we make ourselves that God, and all of a sudden, God is teeny tiny, and I am massive, and I can do what God can't do. And then that leads to all sorts of behaviours that then are destructive, because what you do in that moment is replace your waterfall for your container. I'm going to have a life that I can keep safe no matter what. Now, I have had to recently acknowledge to myself that the bottom line is that in a number, maybe nearly all areas of my life, I trust me more than I trust God. And that right now is true in some areas of my life. Now, I can pretend it isn't, and I could pretend to you it isn't, But the truth is, that's where I'm at in some areas of my life. And I trust me more than other people not to hurt me, and I feel I have to protect myself because of things that have happened. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because I want us to be willing tonight to hear the conclusions we have come to and acknowledge them, because it's really releasing, because then you can be like, right. Then I don't think I trust me more than God and do nothing about it. I think, that's my problem, that's my leak. And then I can come to God and say, do you know what, God, right now I've realised I've taken over. I'm trusting in me, not in you. I've got stuff I need you to help me with. But my decision is I really want to try and trust you again. Will you help me? And he's like, yay, you've seen it. Brilliant. I knew you weren't getting it. I just was waiting for you to twig. Let's work on it. What's wrong with that? Why do we hide it? Why do we hide it? Now, I read something this week that talked about false guilt. And it said that sometimes in life we can beat ourselves up about all sorts of things in all sorts of ways, because there's actually something deep down inside of us that God wants to show us is a problem. But rather than see the real problem, we beat ourselves up about other stuff. Instead of coming to him and saying, do you know what, God? Give it me straight, what's really going on with me? And him go, actually, your problem's this. And you're like, whew. And I know tonight that some of you beat yourself up and give yourself a hard time about all sorts of things, but that is not the problem. And if you really want to know how to get to the root of what the problem is, be prepared to actually come to God and say, give it me straight, God, what's the problem? And if you struggle to actually have that conversation with God, come and speak to one of us and trust us to hear God and to know stuff and see stuff and be willing to hear it so that you can move on. I have this thought this week. We do not hear the things that to us are not a possibility. The Pharisees could not hear that Jesus was the Messiah because to them it wasn't a possibility. And the Bible talks about how they were blind and how they were deaf. They wanted their certainty even if it was a lie. It was their lie. It was doing something great for them. So they'd rather keep their lie because that made them feel secure than actually find out the truth. And we kid ourselves if we think we don't do the same, because we do. Their predictable God was one they could control. So they used their fake data and they were happy with that, regardless of what it did to anybody else. Now, you can live a life that seems possible to you. You can decide the things you're certain about. You can fix them all in your little box. You can live at your level of understanding with you as the expert. Or would you like to be able to hear some thoughts that are currently for you impossible? That's exciting. For example, when I have this thought, I said, right then, God, give me an impossible thought. You know, I'm trying to tell you to ask that question. I was about to never ask that question, but do ask that question. And this was my impossible thought. He said to me, if you let go, you'll still be safe. And I was like, no, I don't think so. But that's because to me that thought at the minute is impossible. Because if I let go of all the stuff, who's going to protect me? Oh, but that's my impossible thought, to believe, to trust in. The other impossible thought he gave me, again, it's to do with my wiring, was you don't just exist to look after other people. I'm like, even now that pushes a button, because I'm like, well, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But that's my impossible thought that I have to come to faith on. There is a poem that I teach called Nothing's Changed, which is about the apartheid system in South Africa. And the guy grew up under this system of segregation, and then he grows up and he moves away. And then as a man, he goes back to visit the same place. And apartheid is now legally over. And the signs have come down and everything else, and it looks different. But when he comes back as an adult, he feels exactly the same. Because as he comes back into that scene, all those feelings that he had in childhood, all those familiar places, come right back in him, and the anger just... And he comes to the conclusion that nothing's changed. But the truth was, it had, but he hadn't. And sometimes we look around a situation and we think nothing's changed. But it has. It's just you haven't, because you're still living in that prison. Now, we all have stuff going on the outside, but there can be a different story. Paul is in prison, in actual prison, not nice. He's in prison, but do you know what he says when he writes his letter? He doesn't say, all I want more than anything else in the world is to be out of this prison. What does he want more than anything else in the world? To know Christ. He doesn't say, I want to be out of these four walls because I'm trapped. He said, all I want is to know Christ, because what he understood is the outside stuff does not have to become your prison if inside you have a freedom that is in Christ. He knew, yes, I've got stuff that's making me feel imprisoned, but I've got a Saviour who is bigger than any prison that can go on the outside of me. And yes, things might take a while to change, but I've got a strength in me to deal with what's outside of me. And some of you are waiting for your outside stuff to change. But do you know what? The outside stuff can change, but if you don't, you'll feel exactly the same wherever you go. And for some of you, that's a horrendous thought, because you're longing for a circumstance to change, and you're thinking, if this circumstance changes, I'm going to feel full. And do you know what? You won't, because it's in here that your fullness comes from. Now, I don't say this lightly, because the outside stuff scares me. I've already shared with you that naturally I don't necessarily always feel safe, and I have to work on that. But if my life is hidden with Christ in God, I'm going to choose to trust him. Even if I have to do it through gritted teeth and clenched fists, and I have to somehow make the steps day at a time, I don't want to be a prisoner in my own fake jail. Because if I just put myself and give myself the illusion that I can handle it, it's a fake jail that will imprison me and a fake safety. And what is the point? What is the point if it's not actually real? Because that is shortchanging my life and his extravagant grace and that transforming power. So as we've heard before, but I'm going to say it again, we have to name this stuff and see this stuff. Rumpelstiltskin in that fairy tale lost his power when he was named. And it's true. Sometimes we've got to name what the problem is, own up to what the problem is, look God in the face and say, God, this is it. And he says, great, come on, let's talk about it and move on. Now, ask yourself tonight, as we wrap up, which of your needs right now do you feel are being threatened by what is going on around you? Because if you start with that question, you're going to start to identify what's really going on in your heart and what goals are being blocked. What's standing in your way? What's in your belief system? And what does that do to you, honestly? If it makes you mad, say it makes you mad. If it makes you scared, let's say it makes you scared. And let's say all that with the purpose of it being restored, because you're not kidding Jesus, and you're probably not kidding a lot of the people that love you as well. Because we tend to know each other better than we think we do. And let's have an impossible thought and rehearse that until it becomes our very own. I went on an aeroplane recently, and I've just told you, this stuff about not feeling safe is really being exposed. You know when you see it everywhere? Once God puts his finger on something, it's everywhere. And I had to get on an aeroplane. And then, of course, when you get on the aeroplane, they start standing up with the safety equipment, telling you everything that could go wrong. And I was sat in this aeroplane with Daniel and Graham next to me, thinking, a tiny Ryanair. Has anyone been on Ryanair? It's awful. When I'm rich and famous, I'm going to go first class. But for now, I travel Ryanair. There was a safety announcement, and as I sat there, they're going, if the plane crashes, your oxygen mask will come down, deal with your child first, your life vest will be there, the doors will open, go down, blow up pull the cord, blow up the thingy, blow the whistle, the light, and all that lot. And as I sat there, I'm thinking, well, how do I know there's an oxygen mask in there? I can't see one. There might not be one. You might be telling me there's one and there's not one. How do I know there's a life vest under my seat? How do I know you'll open the door? How do I know when you pull the cord that my life vest will blow up? I didn't know that. So in that moment, I had a choice. I had to trust what I was being told, or I had to get off the plane. They're my only options, aren't they? Or sit there in a panic, I suppose. And I think sometimes in life, we have to say, I'm either going to stay in this and trust, or I'm going to forfeit the journey. And sometimes you hit a wall and you think, right, to stay on this journey with God, I'm going to have to trust in something I can't see, or decide I'm not making this journey. And that's our options. And they are our options, but that's our options. But I think if we can be willing to trust in some impossible thoughts and hold those values as tightly as we've held other stuff, even if it takes some, I think it's worth the ride because it takes us to a new destination. Yay. Last thing. Jesus meets a woman and says, come and meet by this well. And she talks about, he asks her for water. She asks him for water. And he said, if you knew who I was, you'd, what did she say? She says, if you knew who I was, you'd ask me for water that never runs out. Is that, isn't it? Something like that. He basically says he's a source that is never going to run out. And her reaction to meeting Jesus was to go back and say to her friends, family, you've got to come and meet this man. He's told me everything I ever did. He hadn't, but it felt like that. Because being in the presence of Jesus for a few minutes left her feeling seen and known. She didn't feel hidden anymore. She just felt seen. And I wonder sometimes why we stay away from Jesus, because I think it hurts us when we don't let him see it. And it may well hurt him because he sees it anyway and just wishes we'd be open with him. And he waits. He waits for us to be like one of the two sons. The son who had gone away, who he waited to come back, and then when he came back he threw a party. Or the son that was stood on the other side of the room just saying, oh, this is awful. You can't just have this younger brother rock back up after where he's been, and throw a party for him. He just thought it was awful. He just thought it was horrendous that his dad would do that. And do you know what? I've put down here, that's the wrong water pot. I've put down here that to the older brother, there was just all this stuff going on that was so scandalous and outrageous and awful. But the truth was, the only thing going on was just a father being gracious to his son. And some of you today, God's waiting for you to turn back, like that verse said. God's waiting for some of you to turn back because you've run off and done your own thing. And others of you, he's waiting for you to turn back because you might still be there, but in your mind, like that song says, your head's got full of some lies. And those lies aren't serving you, and those lies are causing you to miss the grace that is going on for other people because you're caught up in your container and everything else. So, will you turn back and stop digging your own cistern? That's a good word, isn't it? I've put here that the only last thought I had, I promise you it's the last thought, is I thought, if you had a bottle like this that had all those holes in it, if I'd got 3 extra people round Josh, that enough people could have covered all the holes in this that would have enabled Josh to actually keep that container full. And I thought, I added this last minute, but I really feel it's important for some people in here. Sometimes people have leaking containers, and what we want to do is rush round and fill the holes and plug the gaps and somehow want to stop their life leaking. But you know, sometimes the better solution would be to actually wait with them while some stuff leaks out and then offer them a new container. And sometimes how we are with other people doesn't serve them. Really what we should be asking is this going to mend this person and make them whole, or am I just patching up a bottle that really needs replacing? I'm not going to say any more about that, but I know that's relevant for someone here. So, I don't know how to finish. I haven't thought that bit through. But I think if we go back to the title, A Full and Overflowing Life, to get a full and overflowing life, I believe we need a new container. And I believe that means ditching some of our things that we've tried to do to make our own life full. And that's not something we can fix here tonight. I think that's going to require us honestly looking at our own lives, asking ourselves some questions and being willing to be truthful with ourselves. Now, there's people that can support you and everything else with that process, but don't have fake data. If you're not okay, you're not okay, and say you're not okay. And what's wonderful about being here is you cannot be okay. Yay! You cannot be okay and be okay. Isn't that amazing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray, and what I'm going to ask God to do is work on your heart to help you to see the story that he's telling over your life. And I'm going to ask him to expose some situations in you where your life's leaking and to remind you hang on, rather than just me trying to fill this gap and catch this water, why don't I ask myself some questions about what I'm trying to fill my life with here and whether that's going to work for me. So I'm going to pray that now and then have some conversation about this, follow it up. I'm blabbing now, aren't I? Shall I just pray? Right, okay, going to pray. If you want to stand, stand. It always does you good to stand, doesn't it? Yeah, let's stand. Right. God, I want to thank you that you are interested in us being with you, not in a fake way or in a way that requires us to perform, but just being real with you. And we so want to be full, and we so want to be a person that can be full of your life and full of your joy and full to share with other people. But sometimes we try and put that in the wrong container for various different reasons in here. And so, God, I can't speak individually over everybody here. You know their stories. I'm going to ask, Lord, and believe that by your Holy Spirit this week, you'll nudge them when these things are happening. You'll prompt them to remember things that have been said, and you'll help them to have the courage to be asking the right questions, being honest with themselves. And right now I speak truth to every heart and mind, that where there's lies that we tell ourselves or are being told by other people, that truth would reign and life would reign, because we want to be part of your waterfall, Lord, because we know that you can offer us a full and overflowing life, and we can't control it ourselves, and yet we try really hard to do that. So God, I'm going to trust you with your word. I'm going to trust it'll do what it was sent to do. And I thank you so much that we are in a place here where we don't have to have fake data, but that we can just come to you as we are. You see in our hearts and move forward from here. So thank you, Jesus. Thank you for these great people, and keep us all safe in you. Whatever that looks like, we'll trust you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.